Yo, what's going on, guys? It's JB with the Chillin' with Villains podcast. Just wanted to say thank you once again for always coming through and chilling with us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We had a very special guest by the name of Chukwudi Iwuji come through. We had Mr. Iwuji last year to discuss Peacemaker. If you've seen Peacemaker, he played Clemson Mern. And then we had him again to discuss Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where he will be playing the High Evolutionary. So yeah, we obviously got into speaking about Guardians 3. We spoke about more, sci-fi geek culture when it comes to Star Wars, the Aliens franchise. So definitely a great conversation. We hope you guys enjoy. But also just wanted to mention that this is technically episode 219. I had mentioned in the podcast that it was episode 218. But what happened is 2 weeks, we shot this episode with Chukwudi about 2 weeks ago. We shot an episode last week, and I said 218 in that one as well. So I say 218 on both of them. But 218 is already out. You can go check that out. And this one is labeled 219. All right. So sorry for the confusion there, but hope this helps. And yeah, I'll let you get to it and enjoy the episode. So thanks again for coming through and chilling.
I hope y'all ready. Don't know
the power of the dark side. You're not the only one cursed with knowledge. Chillin' with Villains podcast. Perfect.
All right, sounds good. So welcome back, guys. Episode 218 of the Chillin' with Villains podcast. I'm one of your hosts, JB. We're here with Ariel and Mark. Unfortunately, Brian and Eunice could not make it here today. However, we did not come up empty-handed, right? Today we have a special guest, a returning guest. You may know him from Peacemaker as Clemson Mern, and you can see him in theaters on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, as the High Evolutionary in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chukwudi Iwuji.
See in the sound right now. Yeah, we'd have the applause.
So we'll just do the sound bites. Mr. Iwuji, welcome back to the Chillin' with Villains.
Thank you so much for having me back, guys.
Of course.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, you as well. It's been a little over a year.
Yeah.
Right? Because when we last spoke, it was January, February, I believe.
Yeah, it was February, around there. February.
It was cold. I remember you had that really dope looking coffee mug.
Yeah. You all had the coffee mugs out. Yeah.
With the big handle.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
I still have it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I remember.
it was made for me by the guy who played Judo Master. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's really dope. We have our basic Starbucks cups here, and he has this whole elaborate freaking thing.
Whole custom mug.
Yeah. That was right around that time period, and a lot's happened. The show wasn't even over yet. Peacemaker was still going on.
Yeah.
And right, spoiler alert for anyone who hadn't seen it, but your character, unfortunately,
had I died yet? Had I died?
No. We had just found out you were a butterfly. The butterfly effect. We had just found out. And then I remember, a couple weeks later, you had posted on your Insta, like you played the piano as the final goodbye to Clemson Mern. So that was very nice and touching.
Thank you very much.
So talk to us from that time period since we last spoke. Have you had any issues on the subway while you were reading with somebody bothering you, or what's
it's only been good. It's all been a lot of love. I didn't when I was playing Clemson. I didn't really. I mean, the crazy ones are Vigilante and Peacemaker, and they're the mad ones, and the Eagle. I really didn't think, I thought I was the straight guy in the piece there to sort of glue things together, but I've had so much love from people in the subway and on the streets about Clemson Mern.
Oh, wow.
That's the first time I've had someone yelling my character name to me instead of my actual name on the street, like Mern.
Hey, okay.
So that shit started. You know, that's good. Can I use that swear? Am I allowed?
Of course.
Yeah. Oh, good.
As long as it's cool.
I was worried for a second.
With
couple
Gracie.
of other ones I've done. We can't do that. You know.
Yeah.
So no, that was great. So I felt really it was a special character, and it was, you know, what I loved seeing was how genuinely surprised people were. First, they were really surprised I was a butterfly, right? Yeah. But how surprised they were that I died. I think when you get that sort of reaction from fans, you're like, oh, we're still able to surprise people. You know, most of the time we can see stuff coming. You know, we're not really that surprised. We can enjoy how it's executed, but we're not really that surprised. But I love the reaction of people going, what? How's that happen?
This is the very next episode.
Yeah, it was exactly. The next episode. And then you think you're going to have this whole story about how they deal with him being a butterfly. No, he's gone. He's like...
It was wild.
No, I think I think the show, now that, you know, season 1 is all said and done, I think it caught a lot of people by surprise. Of, you know, because obviously you meet the character, you know, in the Suicide Squad, and then you hear about a spinoff, and you're just sort of like, oh, you know, like, who really, you know, asked for this, right? But then you get someone, and again, I don't know why people would doubt, you know, James Gunn,
who's gone,
right? And so it's just become so I guess popular now, right? And yeah, it's sad to see the fact that, you know, your character as Clemson Mern won't be, you know, returning, but you know, we could get to talking about this a little bit later when we get into the DC Marvel stuff, because there's a lot that's been going on the DC side of things. So
yeah. I mean, I'm as intrigued as you are to see what they do with upcoming seasons and stuff. But that's the only sad bit, is to say goodbye to the character. But I think they sent him off in the right way. And what I love about James is, you know, when he's decided on how he's gonna tell a story, even if it hurts to do, he will do it. And that's why his stuff is so good. He's not compromising and being, you know, pulled in different directions. He's like, I love you in this. I wish I didn't. I almost wish in fact, he even said to me, I almost wish I didn't hire you in this because you're going to die. And I would have rather not. I would have rather have you not be a character that died. But here we are, and you're going to die. It's as simple as that, you know? So I love that, you know?
I know, right? That must be a funny, not a funny, but it's like, I never put into perspective, you know, how that dialogue can go. Because I've heard it a few times now, especially when it comes to, like, you know, main characters of a show. It's like how that conversation must be between the director and the actor, where it's just like, hey, I know you're a lovable character. I know you love the role.
I love you.
I love you, but this is what's going to have to happen, unfortunately. And it just must be so, like, in a sense, heartbreaking, right? It's like, damn, like, really?
But no, it wasn't that bad for me, because unlike some of these other circumstances you're talking about, where they find out after like a season or two, or halfway through the season, I knew from the start. You know, James is one of those actors. He's one of those directors who actually writes everything. So like, we all had our 8 episodes there, and part of the discussion was, oh, you're gonna, you know, this is where you end. So for me, it didn't come as a surprise, and I'd steeled myself to the fact that it was going to happen. But I guess what made filming that episode eventually not too bad was knowing that I would be working with him again in Guardians. You know, that made it easier on me.
I was just gonna say, right? Like,
I was like, okay, well, I'll see you goodbye.
I'll see you in a little bit. We're filming something else.
I'll see you in a few months.
The director gives
I
you
was
2
like,
weeks.
I was like, oh, Guardians, I gotta go, guys. You know.
It's been real, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the other side. Bye.
Just crosses over to the other lot.
Yeah, the other lot.
Hey, yeah. Just like, James, I'll see you next week. Yeah, see you guys. Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody else, see you when I see you. All right, goodbye.
It's been real.
Right. No, but that's awesome, man. And then kind of, I just wanted to ask you, right, just continuing on for 2022, right, like from the year. Because I saw, you know, we're obviously following you on socials and everything, and we saw that you were a big fan of a show that we actually covered on the podcast, which was Andor.
There we go. Chuck. There we go.
Your caption to that post was so beautifully said, and I was just like, because I felt that way watching that scene. And again, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Andor. Go watch it. We were literally. So let me ask you this: are you an overall Star Wars fan, or was it just that show that kind of drew you in?
I mean, I am a Star Wars fan. I mean, it was we watched a lot as kids. In fact, I was living in Lagos, Nigeria as a kid, because there was a big gap, right? By the time I was old enough to remember, Star Wars had already happened. So we were able to see Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Then there was a gap and when you're that age, where you basically base your life to birthday and Christmas, it seems a year is a long time. When there was there was this big gap. And then I remember my brother coming home one day and just saying he'd seen in the big marketplace in Lagos, Return of the Jedi, a video cassette of Return of the Jedi, and it must have been pirated. It was still playing in cinemas. You know what I mean? It must have been. And those are the days when things played
shaky
in cinemas
cam
for like a whole year. Yeah, but no, it was great quality. I don't know how these guys, but it was perfect quality. And I remember when that video cassette, my uncle gave him the money to go buy it, and he brought it home, and I watched it 3 times with my eldest brother that day. 3 times. We watched it, even though it isn't. Let's be honest, it isn't the best of the first 3. Empire Strikes Back for me. So I'm a Star Wars fan because I love those originals. But for me, I would rate, as far as Star Wars projects, for me, if you're combining film and TV, I would rate Empire Strikes Back. Then it's my number 1. I just think it's just brilliant, And then I would then say probably Rogue One.
Yes.
Because as a movie, because I like the dark stuff, Rogue One. Yes, so for me, after Rogue One, and we all love Mandalorian, that shit's like, it's fun. It's like James Bond in space. We love that stuff.
James Bond in space, let's go. We literally just finished the season 3 finale just now.
Exactly. But for me, Andor sort of picked up where Mandalorian can kind of, for me, for the way it's delivered, the way it's a sort of what's the word? Almost like a procedural. It can sort of stand on its own. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So when in the line in that trajectory of Empire Strikes Back and Rogue One, Andor has been the only thing for me that has come and delivered and nailed it for my taste in Star Wars. Yeah. And I was watching this thing because I was a bit nervous at first because I loved Rogue One so much. I was like, leave it alone.
Yeah, don't ruin his character. Yeah.
Please don't go water it down so that we can have it in our homes every week. Take it. And then you're watching this thing and it's unfolding and these people are pulling your heartstrings. They're breaking your heart. The action is great. The acting is so on point. The casting is so on point. And then Stellan Skarsgård, the writing is just... And then Stellan does for me, it was like listening to Macbeth. Listening to Macbeth does that speech. And I remember, he's always been one of my favorite actors, but I just remember, I think I was on my phone to my agent that day. I was like, you need to get on the phone and find out if there's any roles worth doing still in the next season. I was like, you need to find this out. No, seriously, I was on the phone the next day because I was like, Gilroy, the writing in that is just brilliant, but
And I'm glad to hear, that overall you are a Star Wars fan, so you'll understand me when I'm saying this, right? But it was one of those shows where it's grounded enough in the Star Wars universe where you're like, wow, like I see what the rebellion is actually up against. Like these, like and even the levels to it, like when Mon Mothma's character, right? And her having to be a decoy in the political side. And I'm just like, wow, like this shit could go sideways on so many levels. And they do such a good job of bringing that intensity and really nailing it. Where it's, especially his speech, he's like, dude, you don't know what the fuck I sacrificed.
I've
done
sacrificed
everything.
Exactly.
Like it's like if we kill one person, I don't care because it means saving the entirety of the galaxy.
Right, and what he said, he's like, for a sunset I'll probably never see, man. Come on.
And he's also saying I'm damned. I know that, but this is and it's funny because when you think of the things that happened in like the original, A New Hope and all that stuff. I mean, the whole planet was blown up. Planets are being blown up.
Exactly.
Civilization, like the rebels are under the cosh. I mean, because it's Star Wars and it's awesome. You're right. This show really just made us recognize, and I think Rogue One was like that too. The sort of cost of a rebellion. And I think the socio-political messages have never been clearer for me than watching Andor,
And it's less about like these more outlets. It's like, and like you said, it's grounded in the sense that it's like everyday people that are trying to fight back in their own ways. And it's just like, it's a lot more like relatable in that kind of a sense where it's like, and
I love the fact that even the technology is there was something magical about the technology by the time we got to A New Hope and stuff like, oh, this little gadget, this will save you. Yeah. No, the technology it doesn't seem that much far away from us. Where like, it's very tangible. It's gonna only do so much, Right. Yeah, I love that about it. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. And then something else that I know Mark hasn't seen it yet, but just again on your socials where you talked about Top Gun Maverick, and I was like, cinema is back.
Cinema is back, man.
Cinema is back.
Yeah. I want to go to the danger zone, bro.
I want to go to the danger zone. Why can't we go to the danger zone? And I remember watching the first one because I don't know what it is with me, like, and I have to stop doing this. Like, I have to stop being picky, but like, I just need to start watching the films that people tell me to watch. Be like, yo, watch Alien, watch Aliens, and I did. And
Wait, have you seen Alien? You did. You did. You've seen Alien.
Yeah. I pushed them.
Then we can carry on this conversation. I was worried I was about to sign off. Yeah. You said you hadn't seen that shit.
250's my time. Gotta get
out. He's like, oh yeah, the time difference. It's not gonna work out.
Yeah, it's gotta go.
New York.
He's like, hey, you're in New York, Chukwudi. What do you mean? But have you seen all the Alien franchise films?
I have.
Okay.
Many times over.
So because I've only seen the original Ridley Scott one, and now he put me on to seeing James Cameron one, and maybe this is a hot take, maybe not. Aliens is better than Alien.
Okay. I agree. No.
I had the same reaction.
No. I love this debate because I've seen people twist themselves into pretzels trying to figure out which they prefer. Mm-hmm. And I say the problem is you're trying to judge them as the same criteria. It's like saying honestly, is Blazing Saddles, which is one of the best comedies ever made, as good as Godfather? No, you don't compare the two, because Alien is a horror flick. It's a horror flick set in space.
Yes.
It's it's everything that horror represents. Claustrophobia, having to fix a problem, the encroaching death, the death around you, the characters, that's horror.
Yeah.
Aliens, and credit to James Cameron, is like, I'm not gonna mess with that. That's my man Ridley sorted that. There's no way the alien bursting out of the chest will ever be as terrifying or surprising like that again, because true. We've seen it.
I was shook. I was like, no, what is going on? What is happening?
Yeah. So he went and he made, what kind of movie do I want to make? This is the guy that went and did Terminator. It's like, if you gave me this alien, a bunch of badass soldiers, and you told me to make a movie, I'm not going to go do a claustrophobic whatever. I'm going to give you a movie where shit happens, and that's exactly what happens in that movie. So I don't judge them. Crazy. I love those two movies. Like, if I had to choose one, I'll probably go with Alien, just because I love the horror genre. Yeah. But they are brilliant movies, and I don't challenge anyone that prefers Aliens to Alien. Yeah. It's more about the genre you prefer. But Aliens, I've watched so many times, and I watched it most recently, but it's just brilliant. He did they're untouchable movies. I mean, they're untouchable. You just leave them alone.
I disappointed you, Chukwudi, and I'm sorry about that, because I compared oranges to apples. So I'm sorry.
No, but everyone does this. Everyone does this because
it's a sequel.
They're the same. IP. It's a sequel, but I was like, you don't have to do that to yourselves.
The reason I had brought it up was because, for some reason, for a time period, like, I was like, yo, I just want to focus on like the newer films that are coming out. I kind of disregarded, the things that, came out. Like, the 80s was an amazing time period for
sci-fi.
Especially sci-fi. Like, Ariel put
me on to Blade Runner. Even the bad sci-fi was good. Even the bad sci-fi was good.
What do you consider
bad
sci-fi?
Such great
Spaceballs.
Things like, what was that movie, Crawl? Have you heard of the one Crawl?
Tremors.
Where they throw The crawl is like KRULL. I think it was called. It was a knockoff.
Too.
It was, The Fly is a great movie. That's a great movie. But you mentioned Blade Runner. Blade Runner doesn't date. It looks as brilliant now as it did back then. Yep. It's so brilliant. But you're right. It was a golden period for sci-fi. Yeah, it was.
And then I forgot why I threw on Top Gun because the new one was coming out. I'm like, all right, let me see like what was going on with this. And I watched the first one. I was like, this has a lot of heart to it. Like this looks good. It's fantastic. And then the sequel comes out, I see so much praise on it. I'm like, no way, it's that good. And like I'm just sitting there like.
It is that good. It is.
I was the same as you. I was like, oh no, people have gone and messed up this film for me because they've overhyped it, and I'm only gonna be disappointed.
Right.
And I wasn't. That's why I wrote that post after. I was like, it just made me remember. I mean, in this day and age, it's really hard to. I don't know if, like I said in the post, I don't know if the movie star still exists. We know too much about people. We see too much about them.
Yeah.
We see them in too many projects because if it's not the film, it's a great streamer. I don't know if the superstar still exists, and if they do, that's why I said if they do, he has to be one of them, Tom Cruise, because
absolutely
every frame belongs to him, and not just the frames he was in, the ones he wasn't in also, but it was just a great, it was, when I think of the phrase popcorn, that's a movie I just want to be eating popcorn, enjoying, and I come out and I'm like, life is good. You know what I mean?
That's a movie, man.
I mean,
that's like in the same bag as like what James Cameron does, like to tie it back into Aliens as well. Like Aliens, Avatar, Terminator 2. Are you kidding me? Titanic, like all that stuff is just popcorn movies.
It's epic.
You're gonna feel all the feelings you will.
Yeah, James Cameron is like
entertainment.
He's like, how can I smack on a bunch of really pleasing things to the eye and have a solid story. And that's
and also, speaking of James Cameron, a movie of his that didn't do well, but I love that. What's better is Abyss. Have you seen Abyss?
Oh, The Abyss? Yeah, it
the
came
one
out when I was in
the
school.
ocean.
I remember. Yeah.
You should go check it out. It's just so easy.
Let me see.
It's such a good flick. You should check it out. Yeah, it really is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And just to kind of wrap up the stuff for 2022 that I found interesting was something, and kind of not relating to film, or maybe it is. I guess you can let me know more about it. But STORM, right? So support, trust, opportunity, rebuilding, motivation. And a quote that I liked, which was very reminiscent. I don't know if you saw The Last of Us, but out of the darkness into the light. Yeah, what'd you think of The Last of Us?
One of the best things that has been on TV in decades.
It's so
beautiful.
Good.
Pedro Pascal being a dad. So perfect. What more do you need?
Yeah, he can do The Mandalorian, and he can do this. Like
just an adopted father all around.
But I thought that was pretty like cool. Do you mind just kind of explaining to us a little bit more about what that is?
Yes, STORM is an organization that it focuses on helping and rehabilitating, but supporting predominantly women who have come from environments of abuse,
right?
But not just women, kids, the victims of this also, and they've really, Marie and the team have been. Marie Hansen, has been herself. She was a victim of abuse, domestic abuse herself, and. In getting out and getting her kids out, she was like, I have to help people in this way. So it's an organization, that really puts its money where its mouth is and goes into communities to help people, organizes things for the mothers with their kids, looks into their futures also, like helping propel them into education and things like that when it comes to the kids, because it's really, I guess if you were to ask Marie, her goal is to make sure no one ever has to go home frightened ever again, in that sense. And it's got some great people involved. Idris Elba is involved and all that. Will Poulter, Will put me onto STORM because I was looking for, because we're very lucky in this profession, right? Ultimately, despite all the ups and downs. And it was when I was in Atlanta shooting Guardians, I was thinking about, how blessed I've been really the last couple of years, and how, well, from what everyone was telling me, that my life potentially was about to get more public. And I'm sitting there, what does that mean for me? What is it just going to be for me, or is there a way I can do this? But at the same time, I don't want to scattergun myself around and say, well, I'll be part of that, not really be part of it at all, just attached to it and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I really, exactly. So I was like, what do I care about? And I've always hated bullies. I've always felt for people who have to deal with bullies. I was lucky. I really didn't suffer much bullying, any bullying at all when I think back to my life. But I saw people bullied. Does that make sense? And I just really hate. The idea, there were all these stories coming out during the pandemic of the rise in abuse going, because suddenly you don't have anywhere to run to. You're locked down in the home. You don't even have the respite of the fact of the abuser going to work at least for a few hours a day where you can have some peace. They're in the house with you. And I just thought, I was talking to Will about the fact I was looking, because he does a lot of charity. I was looking for something worthwhile, and he told me about Marie Hansen and the team. And I was like, I want to be, and they were like, we'd love you to be part of it, made me an ambassador and all that stuff. So when I can, I sort of try and get the message out there that, you're not alone,
That's great. And I think, and the reason I wanted to touch base on that too is because I felt myself as well, like kind of like, what can I do to help, and it's not to say, because, I've become someone who definitely, same boat, right? Like, what is the point of bullying? Like, what are we really accomplishing here? It's stupid. It really is. But at the same time, it's like, right, there's not bullying, but there's also not taking action. Right, so you'll see people get bullied, but you never truly step in. So when is it time for you to kind of step in? And I've always felt that way about myself, where it's just like I never know the right time to step in and try and make a difference and help make a difference. Especially us, right? We talk about comic book and superheroes and all that stuff, and we, to an extent, we idolize these heroes, and it's just like we should be sort of implementing that in our everyday life, right?
Ideology, exactly. Just being a good person,
Exactly, being a good person. And, I even told my partner, like, recently, I was like, hey, like, maybe 1 year for Thanksgiving, as much as it may be, quote unquote, like a sacrifice, like, instead of being with, our families that year, we could go to a shelter and help feed the homeless or a soup kitchen or something along those lines.
My eldest sister. Yeah, my eldest sister, she does that in Christmas. She goes and works at she did this last Christmas. I think it's something she's starting to do, Yeah. And here's someone who was the British ambassador to Mozambique, but she understands that helping can be done at different levels, very much so. Do you know what I mean? And you're right. That thing about when do you step in is a big thing for me, because there is the physical one where you see someone like on the subway and stuff, and I'm really bad at not doing anything, and it's dangerous. I've been warned about it, like, because you never know what someone's carrying in them. This guy has. So I've tried to sort of think about how you deflate it as opposed to jumping in like a superhero, Yeah. But I can't. I find it very hard to. I just get angry when I see. Someone over. It's one of the things that we get annoyed if someone steals your stuff. We get annoyed. There's so many things to annoy, but for some reason, seeing someone physically or frighten someone really upsets me. Really, really gets me.
No, absolutely.
We are literally all the same species. Like, no one is above the other person. And it's just
the class system that keeps us, separated.
Exactly. It's insane. But and kind of to your point now, where you brought up, your public life is probably going to, amplify in a sense, right? I wanted to ask you, obviously, since Peacemaker, and now you had your moment at Comic-Con, and I want to ask you a little bit about that. Like, how did that feel? Because you came out full High Evolutionary, like on stage, full in character. It was like, yo, James, like, I'm taking the mic. Give me that shit. I'm here. What you looking at, Feige?
That was funny because
what are you reading?
Up to a week, I know about Comic-Con, but I was assuming that I was just going to be on the panel like everyone else, and that was the plan. I was going to get on stage with everyone. Then I got a message from James like a week before saying, how do you feel about turning up as the high evil? And not only that, but not just, and I thought, oh, okay, so I come on stage as high evil. No. And then I got the whole idea they had of walking through the audience and kind of improvising, as well as he'll write a little script, but improvising some. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I put that phone down. I've never been so scared in my life. Because that middle ground of, it's not like a full performance where everything's scripted, right?
Sure.
And it's not just me being myself if I turned up in my clothes on stage. There's this middle ground of being a WWF wrestler coming onto the stage, basically.
Pretty much,
you know? That stuff is it was nerve-wracking. And but I'll tell you, when I turned up in Hall H, 7,000 people there, and the lights turned, and all my nerves went away, because the energy in that room, the love in that room, the excitement, the generational excitement, father to granddad to whatever, all or grandma to, it was all there. They brought their kids there. That energy, I suddenly went, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do. That's when the whole, all the performance came and I don't know if you saw the bit where I took the woman's selfie and started to take a selfie, because you suddenly realize why you're there. You know what I mean? You suddenly realize what this is all for, and you let go of all your nerves and stuff, and it was exhilarating. And it's funny because when I walked off stage was all the cast or the people from Black Panther and Ant-Man and stuff, and they all sort of were like, that's that. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
That was the moment I said, I was like, yeah, I'm the guy. I felt like I'd arrived. But before I went on stage, into the hall, I saw for the first time on a screen backstage the first teaser for Guardians, which everyone who was in Comic-Con could see. And I was so emotional because, guys, I can't, I'm in that. It's no longer watching it. You're in it. I'm in it. I'm not just observing it or associated with it. I'm going to be in that.
And you're an integral role, man.
Integral, and the bad guys. I mean, it's such a dream to be it's something I fantasize about jokingly, but never really thought I'd be. The villain, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Or did you, I mean, obviously you probably won't tell us, but did you have your moment? Because last time you were here on the podcast, you said you want a scene where you're in an opera and you're shooting some guns, and I don't know if the High Evolutionary needs guns, but I'm sure we'll get a similar scene to that.
There were his whole delivery and persona is so badass.
Shit.
He's such an arrogant son of a bitch. You know what I mean? He's like, he's a complete narcissist. I mean, I know they say don't judge your characters, but I've taken off the suits. I can say he's a narcissist. It's very grand. It was fun to strut around in that suit, and also to see it on the screen with all the finishing, because there were certain things that only with VFX they could add to whatever. So seeing that, you're like, whatever. But I got versions of that so much for this character. Even in the dialogue, even in the quieter scenes, it's a big space opera. The Guardians movies are big space operas in general, and definitely my character fits in that space opera villain world. But specifically, what you're talking about, like walking into whatever. No, that's when Chad Stahelski asks me to come back to the John Wick franchise. Then I'll actually have that stuff.
I was gonna say,
on,
John Wick
still
alone.
waiting for the phone call.
John Wick alum. But I have the quote here. It is from Wikipedia, so you correct me if I'm wrong. But 9 times out of 10, Wikipedia has never let me down. Just so everyone knows. By the way,
we had this discussion before.
This is a Wikipedia sponsorship.
Absolutely not.
Iwuji described the character as narcissistic, sociopathic, but very charming, adding that there was something very Shakespearean about him. There's nothing very emotionally dark about him, and there's something very emotionally dark about him, and he's a lot of fun on top of all that. Was that you confirmed?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, that's me.
See, 9 times out of 10.
That's Wikipedia. It. That's very it. That's very him. He is. Go on.
Oh no, yeah, I was gonna say, and last time you were here, you did bring up the fact that, you know, because of your theater background, it's something that, and especially since, you know, I remember the conversation we were talking about, you know, how Joaquin Phoenix kind of took the Joker and kind of you could feel that it was kind of his own thing, and that you sort of felt that what James Gunn wanted to do with you and High Evil was something you felt very similar about. Does that still kind of stand true for you?
Yeah. Absolutely, because one thing I realized then as we were filming is, like, first of all, the High Evil on the page, on the script, is already very different from the guy in the comics, not just physically, but just his motivations and stuff like that. So I didn't feel restricted by the comics. But what was great about the scripts and working with James is that even though he had it on the page, I felt him in filming, watching. I know this sounds obvious, but really watching what I was doing in delivering his script. And if he saw something, he would say, okay, take that further or pull that further. Nice. So there was a real sense when I was talking about the Joker, it's like someone, I don't know if this is the case, but when I was watching the Joker and Joaquin Phoenix in it, a lot of what he ended up doing couldn't have been written down in black and white.
No way.
There was stuff written in black and white, and then he took it. And I felt that similar thing, and I'm so grateful for that being my Marvel introduction, first Marvel movie. That's what happened, was that there was stuff on the page, but when we got to play, James let me grow with it and encouraged it and plucked out certain things from it and adapted things and swung things round a bit. So that I was watching, I finally saw it like last Friday.
Oh, what'd you think?
And I was watching, it's great. It's awesome. I finally saw it and I just went, because that was the process. There were things I did in the movie, even though I know I did them, that still surprised me in how they turned out.
Right.
Just because different things were firing, you know, at the same time. So it was such a joy, and it was Shakespearean, because there were times, guys, that I was vocally exhausted because there were moments that it just demanded we do this take and really get that, make it ugly and make it real. We weren't allowing this character to fall into any category of Marvel villain. We had to create our own category for him, and I think that's what we went for. Yeah.
So that's an incredible full circle moment for you as well, because you know, from a theater background to now being in a sort of space opera where you are the villain. I mean, is there tragedy in the High Evo, do you feel, like, as well?
Huge tragedy. I think there's big tragedy, and I don't want to give away any spoilers.
Sure, of course.
There is. You're right. He is a tragic, because the definition of the tragic hero, at least the simplified definition that we see all over Shakespeare and the classics, is someone who had a great capacity for good, but for one tragic flaw, they fall. Right
to zero.
And I think that there's plenty in the High Evo that you go, if not for this was someone with the potential for amazing things because of that mind he has. He is just. But his tragic flaw is his arrogance and his narcissism and his you know, and all that. And that turns what could be a gift into a curse, something quite terrible. Yeah.
Do you like, what do you think is like the biggest difference, I would say, like in terms of like how you approach this character versus like a character like Myrn from Peacemaker? Because obviously, like, he was an original character, like he wasn't in the comics or anything like that, and like did going to Comic-Con, you were like, oh man, like fans really do like love, you know, this universe, and obviously I'm playing a character that's been written and, you know, in terms of that. Like, did you feel like you had a lot, I know you still said you got a lot of freedom, but like, was it like, was there certain lines?
Obviously, you know that you have a certain responsibility to a dedicated fan base, right?
Sure.
But that fan base, if they're James Gunn's fan, know what to expect when James gets his hands on a character. When James gets his hands on a character, he's going to use that character and bring out the essence of the character to tell you a damn good story in which you will hopefully fall in love with the character even more than you thought you were, right? That's why he loves working with obscure characters that only people really tapped in and making them universally loved, right?
Yeah.
So yes, there was a sense that of course there are going to be people that think, why isn't this High Evo in red? Why is he in purple? Why is this?
There's going to be the nitpicks, right?
The nitpick. Why isn't he wearing why can I see his face and it's not, the metal mask? Because James is like, I'm not going to waste Chuck's face behind a mask,
Exactly.
So I knew there were people, you can't please everyone all of the time, but you aim to please as many people as often as you can. And I think this really does. And what I like about it is that if we've done it right, and I genuinely think we have, any reservations you have about the fact that, this High Evo isn't following the same track as in the comics, you forget about that within minutes of seeing it, because it's such a strong story going forward, But yes, I felt a bit of, just like if I were to play a Bond villain, hint, hint. If I were to play a Bond villain.
Let's go.
No, but seriously, I'm being serious. If I played a Bond villain, I know that there's certain things people want a Bond villain to do. If I played a Jedi in style, I know regardless of what I am, there's certain qualities that have been preset. When you're working with these universal cultural IPs, which these characters are, you have to know the basics. You have to know the foundations before you start riffing on them, right? And that's the difference between a Mern, where you go, no one knew about Mern, no one had any expectations about Mern.
Right.
We can do whatever we want with this.
I think James is like fantastic at picking characters and also like taking their essence of that character, like you were saying, and then just saying, I'm going to throw this into an entirely different kind of shell. But this person, whoever I choose to play them, is going to be obviously talented like yourself, but then be able to like take it and make it their own while also maintaining that essence of it. So I think that's something he's fantastic with.
Yeah, he smokes.
Yeah, because ultimately he knows what the core stories of these people. Guardian's been a classic example. Is that these are misfits, people who are searching for Peter Quill, was searching for a father figure, or Gamora lost her parents, like all their sister, or Nebula wanted to be loved. I mean, and then Rocket, of course, is like, who the hell am I? What am I? I don't belong anywhere. He gets that essence, and he actually highlights them so beautifully, so lyrically, also with his music and stuff like that. That he knows the audience. That's one thing James knows. He knows the audience. He knows what you need. Trust me. He's always saying, I can deliver that.
But Chukwudi, let me ask you this, because it seems to me you're definitely a film enthusiast. Like, film is obviously your passion. So were you already super familiar, like with the MCU, with Marvel? Like have you been there since Iron Man, or have you now watched everything, or how has it been for you?
Well, it goes further back to growing up again in Lagos, and there were just stacks and stacks of comic books. I mean, when I think of the editions, when I think of those comic books we've lost over the years, there was a big flood in our home. We have a home in London, and it destroyed a garage full of them. I just think of the collections we had. So all my life, I've been growing up reading comics and stuff. Now, as far as seeing them on the big screen, let's be honest. Like, up until Iron Man,
it's been rough.
Marvel didn't have much to talk about as far as DC did, because they had the Superman movies with Christopher, which are just brilliant. They still hold up, the first two at least today.
Batman,
and they
Michael
had
Keaton's
Batman. They had Batman. They had two versions of it. Even when they rebooted Batman, it was badass.
Yeah, they had Val
Kilmer. So I just feel that. So yes, I've always been there. So certainly from Marvel, from Iron Man, Captain America, all that stuff, I was there. It was my go-to thing. It was together with, you remember they used to come out at a bit of a slower rate. Even before that, the Incredible Hulk movies, Ang Lee and all that stuff, and whatever. I watched all of them. I love that stuff. So and that's why it's so weird to me, because I always thought I would be someone who went to watch them. and loved them. You know what I mean? And enjoyed them. I didn't have an ambition, not that I didn't want to, but I genuinely didn't have an ambition to be in one because it was so different from my world. That's where you saw Robert Downey and that lot, and William Hurt and all that, and Samuel L. Jackson. No, not me,
Well, Chuck, your jersey officially will be in the rafters with all those names.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
You are MCU canon now, so that's awesome.
And DC.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, because that must feel super surreal, right? It's like you've been there from the jump. You're like, oh, Iron Man, and you went down. You experienced Infinity War. You experienced Endgame. You're just like, holy shit. Yeah. And then you get a call, and it's like, hey, do you want to join this universe? And it's just like. Right.
Like, it wasn't even a call. It's the way it happened. It's the way I'm already doing this DC thing, which already, for me was outlandish. Don't forget, I think I mentioned to you when we first talked, I almost didn't do the audition because I was like, I'm never going to get this. Yeah. But to be in the DC thing, and I haven't even finished that yet, and then James is coming to say, oh, but we're moving on to Marvel next. It's crazy. There's a side of me that still feels like I'm watching. There was a moment on Friday when I saw the movie. They arranged the screening here in New York for, and the beginning of the Marvel movies when the comic flips, with the Marvel and the different characters. And I'm looking at this, and it suddenly dawned on me that no, I'm not here just watching a movie. Wow. When this finishes, I'm gonna be in this. Yeah. Yeah, it was really surreal. Yeah,
and so do you currently, obviously, you've been doing press, you were at Comic-Con, you did the filming, like, do you feel a sense of pressure at all, or do you kind of feel relieved, or what is sort of your emotions right now?
That's a really good question. Obviously, obviously there's a sense of a little bit, anxiety is too strong a word, but consciousness that I really want the film to do well.
Yeah.
Because I know how good it is, and I want people to love it. And we know the work that went into it, and all that. But for the most part, I'm trying to live in the moment, guys. Like, because there's a lot of noise. Like, I'm hearing how your life's about to change, that sort of conversation, right. And I'm hearing like, this movie is so great. I'm hearing, oh God, I've been waiting for this. There's a lot of conversation, like, is this constant wave of stuff, when actually, I had to do this interview today. I've done 4 others today. There's another couple tomorrow. I need to figure out how I get my, get the haircut in before I fly. Oh, I was supposed to fly to LA on a certain day. It has to be today because I have to finish filming this thing I'm filming after that. I mean, there's the practicals of life.
I'm tired.
Do you know what I mean? There's practicals of life that carry on, that stop you from getting too overwhelmed. Even like yesterday, I was with my, getting ready for the looks, for the premiere looks, and that was fun. It just feels very practical right now. There's stuff you have to get done. I'm sure there'll be a moment, probably in and around the premiere day, where, it's all the last minute. It's like getting your last minute touches before you walk on stage. It's the last minute before the world sees it. And I'll have my nearest and dearest with me, family, friends that were my guests to it, that it will suddenly hit me. But right now, it just seems there's just stuff to do. There's stuff to prep and get ready for. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, because I know, when we first spoke, and again, you brought up something to me, dealing with imposter syndrome. And so I was going to ask if that sort of, kind of crept its way in, because I recently, had experience as well, like, especially when you're by yourself, right? Like, and it's just you and your thoughts. Let's say your partner's not with you, for whatever, you're traveling, you're shooting somewhere. And sometimes it's, lonely nights in the hotel or wherever it may be. And you kind of get these thoughts creep in, right? And it builds up panicky and anxiety and things of that nature. So I'm glad to hear that, for you.
No, it does. And that imposter syndrome is more prevalent for me when I'm actually doing it or leading up to it and stuff like that. It's done now. So if I have that, that's too late now.
Too late now. So sorry.
Too late now.
You're taking his punch, bro.
It's over. Yeah, it's too late now. But I guess the sort of version of it is that hope that, please God, let my Marvel movie that I'm in not be the one that doesn't do well. Do you know what I mean? You have that sort of worry, in that sense. Yeah.
It's a James Gunn joint, man.
I think all the signs are there for it to be successful, both commercially and with the critics and the audience. Regardless of that, and that's what we always say when we're reviewing things, right? Because everyone is going to have a different opinion. It's just what it is.
It happens with us all the time,
right? It's unavoidable, right? But we never like to do is shame the creators. We never want to do that, because we understand, even us, something as simple as recording a podcast, we understand how much work kind of goes into this. So we can't even imagine
production,
the type of work that goes into making a blockbuster film. Like if people really sit there and think like, oh, they wanted like to give us like this shitty movie, it's like, no, dude, they didn't. They were trying to get you think they're going to be wasting their time, energy, money, lives?
Man. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of creative energy that goes into this, man.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's the irrationality of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
This is the big version of it. I'm thinking of it in terms of this massive project. But in our quiet moments, even that quiet imposter syndrome is ridiculous. You're there because you've done the work to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no logic to it. But we still have these irrational thoughts. But honestly, when I watched that movie on Friday, I was just like, oh my God, people just don't know what's about to hit them.
Damn.
They don't know.
I was gonna ask you if you had one word to describe the film, what would it be? We all made bets, by the way, on what we think.
And what's your word's gonna be?
One word. Wow.
One word. That's all we need. That's the only spoiler we need.
Just one adjective.
It could be a noun, a verb.
Unforgettable.
Ooh.
That's what you are.
Yeah. Okay.
I was going to say epic, but that's clear. That's too obvious.
Right.
I was going to say epic. It's too clear. But this is genuinely, when I think of, you have all this set piece. Every movie has its set pieces. I'm sitting there going, it's completely unforgettable.
Yeah. Oh man. All the Guardians movies have had like this air of like I think it's gotten progressively just a tad bit more serious with the first movie or with the second movie, because the first one was like still like serious, but like it had like it's like more jokey moments, which is cool, and then the next one had like a little bit more serious, with his dad and everything, and this one I can tell by the trailer, this is going to be heavy stuff at certain points, and like I can't wait to like really watch this and then see your performance and everything else. Like I think it's going to be
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's bigger. Like James said it himself. I believe he said the first one was about the mother, leaving his mom. Yeah, the second one was about searching for his father, and then this third one I think is about family, like connecting. So it's bigger, and ultimately, and finding your family, and ultimately. It's no secret that a big driving force of this story is Rocket's story. And right from the first one, we know Rocket's story is pretty bleak, So that's why this is such a third act. It's brilliant because you have laughter like you want. You have the action sequences that you want. But there's also a grounded tragedy to it, too. Like James has said, it's a darker movie. Darker doesn't mean it's a dark movie. It's just not like a typical James Gunn. He doesn't shy away from getting to the heart of something. The payoff. The only way you get a real payoff. You remember that moment in Suicide Squad when you're having all the best time in the world, people are shooting each other up. Then Ratcatcher tells the story of her dad, and the two of them sat on the clock. And then it's her and her dad sat on the bell tower above the wall, and I'm there crying in a Suicide Squad. That's what James can do. He can find the beauty in both tragedy and levity.
Yeah, for sure. I know we only have a couple of more minutes with you here because we know you have to run. So first and foremost, We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, coming back and chilling with us. We really appreciate it.
You guys are so much fun, man. I'll do it anytime. Let me know. Seriously.
Super glad to hear that. You as well. I was like, let's push the bound. I'm like, I feel like he's a film nerd. Like, let's push the boundaries. Let's see how much.
So we already know we could connect on James Bond, Alien, Star Wars, and now Marvel. Like we're covering all the bases. All the bases.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Gracie just let us know we have at least 5 more minutes with you. So sounds good. So
all right.
I wanted to ask you this because you've mentioned Bond villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the Jedi in Star Wars.
You mentioned Jedi. So what do you feel? Not what could be next, but
what's in the Rolodex?
In your I know you're letting all of this Guardian stuff sink in first because obviously movie hasn't even come out yet, so I'm sure you're still on the the high of that. But in terms of where you feel you could go next, or where you would want to go next, where would that be?
I don't know where I could go next. I can't really answer that because that's to the gods of the industry. The same ones that brought James into my path are planning what's next, right?
Right.
Where I want to is I know there are a couple of projects that I'm attached to that I feel deeply about. I'm attached to play James Baldwin, which is very, we're getting closer and closer to green lighting, and people almost every day in my life, people are like, dude, you need to play James. The first thing Barry Jenkins said to me when I turned up for Underground Railroad was like, has anyone told you need to play James Baldwin? So it looks like that's
told Barry, do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Come on, Barry, let's get it done.
we've been developing that, so that's pretty close. And as you know, I have my family production company. We're developing a lot of stories that are African based, but showing that stories that come out of Africa don't have to be about famine, war, or warriors. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
we get great crime stories. We can do film noir. We can do romantic comedy. So we're developing a couple of things. That's actually an adaptation of a comic book that we're turning into a film noir. That it was initially set in London, but we're setting in Lagos, and everyone's all over it, and it's very, very sexy.
Yeah.
Let
us know if you need a few Latinos, all right?
So those are the sort of things that I'm developing, that I'm part of, is telling those sort of stories. And then, of course, there's conversations happening about stuff. But honestly, guys, one of the things that has been constant in my life has been that I've always been surprised with the next project. I was surprised that my next project was Peacemaker. I was really surprised my next project was Guardians. And I was surprised when Barry Jenkins said, come and do Underground Railroad with me. I was like, me? Do you really? Me? You just did Moonlight. So I just hope that whatever comes next, bears that same element of surprise for me, because that means I wasn't seeing it coming, but it means someone saw me and said, I want you to be part of this. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's a beautiful thing, when that happens.
And that's why, we're excited for you with this, because I'm sure, again, it's going to be a film a lot of people are going to go sit down and see, and
we'll see what comes next. I didn't say that Bond shit by accident.
That's what I'm
saying. I
Dude,
was watching. Do you know how happy I am that you can now go on HBO Max and watch all the James Bond movies on HBO Max now? You know that,
including No Time to Die.
Yeah, no, they have. I was watching Moonraker the other night because I miss Roger, man. I miss Roger Moore. So
which is your favorite one?
I have these. Oh, my favorite one. That's wrong. You should be asking that.
Come on, man.
For me, the OG is Sean Connery. I loved.
I figured, yeah.
As far as, oh my God, that's a hard question, because I also loved. People don't give him enough love, but I love Timothy Dalton also. I thought he was very good.
T-Dog,
he was
that guy.
He did his thing.
Yeah, and on Her Majesty's Secret Service, I know it was George Lazenby doing it, and he only did one. But as a film, as a story, with Louis Armstrong doing the soundtrack, we have all the time in the world. I mean, that movie on Her Majesty's Secret Service is so good. So I can't give you my best one. I like too much of. Yeah. I like bits of every one of them.
I should have learned from earlier with our alien conversation. I did it again. I picked two greats against
you shouldn't ask that. You can't ask that.
No, I mean, we did manage to sort of rank Star Wars though with him. We kind of get that.
I can give you my top 5 bonds. Should I give you my top 5? From Russia with Love.
Okay, classic.
Casino Royale.
Which one?
The first Daniel Craig one.
Yeah.
No, the proper Daniel Craig, not the comedy. Not the comedy. I love the comedy, but Daniel Craig. From Russia with Love, Casino Royale. I really loved Goldfinger.
Okay.
I think, and clearly on Her Majesty's Secret Service, that's 4. And I really think this might change on any given day, but Spy Who Loved Me was Roger Moore's best.
Spy Who Loved Me.
That's a good one.
Wow,
Those are my 5.
You really love like the traditional kind of OG like James
Bond. Yeah. I think Daniel Craig was
dude.
great, but I grew up on the traditional OG ones,
sure.
you know. But his Casino Royale was awesome. You know,
Brilliant.
really love that.
That one's my favorite. I mean, yeah. All right. We're gonna put your name in the ring for Bond villain.
For sure.
Bond villain.
A Sith Lord, right?
Just
so a Sith
dropping
Lord.
that here
Or
and
Jedi,
there.
or a Jedi, Sith Lord,
Or a Jedi.
Or
Okay.
Jedi.
Or Jedi.
Yeah, because you know what? We don't want to shoehorn you into
Yo,
just
call
being a
Kathy
villain.
up. Call Kathy
Like
up.
because when you see someone in a film and you're just like, all right, cool. I know. Eventually, this is going to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
But it's
Bad
not
guy,
true because it didn't happen with what's his name? Are you a Harry Potter fan, by the way? Chukwudi.
And now we gotta go.
I'll just let you guys
Now we have all the time in the world.
You're talking about Gary Oldman, right? You're talking about Gary Oldman.
Alan
You thought he was
Rickman.
going to be the villain and he wasn't, right?
Alan Rickman.
Oh, you
Yeah,
talking about
yeah,
Sirius
yeah.
Black?
Yeah.
Sirius Black, yeah.
Oh, Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman too, because
right, yeah.
everyone thought he was bad, and then,
Spoilers.
yeah, and then
I'll tell you, Alan Rickman.
Spoilers.
Those are 2 actors, Alan Rickman and Gary Oldman, who definitely, when I was preparing High Evolutionary, that were going around in my head. Those 2 actors.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
Those are 2 actors that, because they're guys that they're not worried about. They have no fear for going as big as the scene needs them to be.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because they understand something I really believe in acting, which is that acting isn't about real life. Acting is about being truthful. Truthful means that you can be a galactic warlord or whatever. None of that is real. It's not about real life, but you've got to believe it. And those guys, when you think of how big Gary Oldman was in Dracula, and then how subtle he was in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, or Alan Rickman as the bad. When the world discovered Alan Rickman in the thing with Bruce Willis in
Die Hard.
Yeah. And everyone was like, look how cool a villain he was, and yet how like still and everything he was in Harry Potter. It doesn't matter. There's no way right or wrong. You've just got to believe it, you know. And if you do, the audience will believe it too.
Yep.
Chukwudi, so Gracie is letting us know to wrap up. So I want to leave you off with this. Please watch the Harry Potters.
Thank us later.
Thank us later. Come back. We'll do a full deep dive of Harry Potter whenever you're free.
Okay.
And then also we would like to conclude again, just thanking you so much for again making time, coming on our show, talking to us about all this, this geek stuff and real world talk. Yeah, nerding out with us.
It's a pleasure, guys.
Yeah.
It's always fun, and I wish you all the best. And let's not let it not have to be another year before we catch up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let us know if that Harry Potter rewatch is sometime this year.
I'll let you know that Harry Potter reboots. I'll be there saying I need a five.
And then is there anything you would like to just close us off with? So for the audience.
No, well, I guess since I'm here promoting Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the single coolest questions in regard to that I was asked today was use one word to describe it. It is truly an unforgettable movie. So get to the cinemas, catch it, and please don't hate me too much when you see it.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first, guys.
Come through and chill.